Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. This evening, my guest will be Ms. Jennifer Roberts, the chairperson for the Board of County Commission. How you doing, Ms. Roberts?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Now, it's an honor for me to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about Jennifer Roberts.
Well, actually, before I ran for office, it was Jennifer Roberts1st.
Oh, okay.
And I say that because I grew up in Charlotte, and people I went to high school with knew me as Jenny Watson.
Okay.
So when I first ran for office, I wanted people to be able to connect who I was then with who I am now and know that it was the same person. Well, my campaign team told me that when you have Watson Roberts, Jennifer Watson Roberts, it takes up too much space on the sign. And so I had to shorten it to Jennifer Roberts. But I put my picture on the sign so that people could say, oh yeah, I know who that is. So anyway, so I'm a native Charlottean.
Okay.
I was actually born in Raleigh, but we moved here when I was 11. And I graduated from East Meck, went on to Chapel Hill, and I then had the opportunity to go to two different graduate schools. One, the University of Toronto, and the other one, Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. And so my background is actually in international relations, international politics and economics. And before I became a commissioner, I was teaching part-time at UNC Charlotte in the International Studies department. And I was teaching students about how global the community is and how they are connected to the global economy, global culture, the global environment, and politically they are connected to the world. So that was an enjoyable course to teach.
Okay, the Board of County Commission. Tell the viewing audience a little bit about what do you do as far as the Board of County Commission, how important for them to get involved and to know more about the commission?
Well, I do a lot of explaining to folks what the county does versus what the city does, because they are branches of local government along with a school board that have different areas of responsibility. So it is an opportunity for some civics, lesson in civics. I like teaching, and we have a very complex structure of government in this country as a whole. You think about, we have a federal government, we have a state government, and we have three local boards: school board, the county commission, and the city council. Or if you live in one of the towns like Huntersville or Matthews, you have a town council. So all those groups have to work together to try to provide those services that citizens need, that companies need to prosper in this economy. And the way I like to differentiate between county services versus city and town services is I say that the county is taking care of the people part of government. The city and the towns take care of infrastructure. So if you think about streets and water, sewer, and the airport, that's the city. The city takes care of the physical building, zoning, zoning ordinances, tree ordinances. That's what the city takes care of. The county is going to be the entity that looks at public health, mental health, substance abuse treatment, the Department of Social Services. So when you look at adoptions, foster care, elder care, taking care of our seniors, all those are things the county works with. We also include in that the public library system, the Park and Recreation Department, the Sheriff's Office, and there are some other things we get involved with, the Register of Deeds and that sort of thing, but basically health, human services, health, education, welfare, and almost half our budget is for education. So that's important, especially today when looking at some of the cuts that are possibly looming over us. But I like to remind people that education from the county's perspective is not just Charlotte Mecklenburg schools, also Central Piedmont Community College, which is incredibly important for our workforce training, and the library system. We look at that as part of that educational environment that we know we need in a changing economy to stay competitive in the future.
I know we're talking about the education. Why is it so vital for not only our youth, but our older generation to get more into the education?
Well, it's first of all, I mean, the thing I always remind people is it's the foundation of a democracy.
Yes, ma'am.
If your citizens are making decisions about how they're going to be governed, about who they want to represent them, about how they want things to work in Washington or Raleigh or Charlotte, Mecklenburg, they need to be educated because we want them to be able to read what's going on. We want them to be able to understand what it means to have, for instance, a law that prohibits smoking in restaurants.
Correct.
You know, that helps improve health and improves all these outcomes because secondhand smoke. We want folks to be able to read and understand that so they can make those critical decisions to continue strong governance that will lead us, again, on a competitive path in this global economy. So, first of all, education is the foundation of democracy. Second, it is the equalizer of opportunity. If you have a solid education, it does not matter what color your skin is, what age you are, what gender, where you grew up, what your address was, if you grew up in poverty. If you have a good education, you can have access to a good career which will help you support yourself, which will lead you to be a contributing member of society. And that should be everyone's goal, to have everybody have equal opportunity. Education is the one equalizer. And that's, again, incredibly important if you want a country of freedom and liberty where everyone has that equal freedom, liberty, and equality, equal access to that opportunity, to success. The other reason why everybody should care is because people who are self-sufficient, who can learn and understand how to change and to learn more in an economy that's changing, can support themselves. And therefore, they stay healthier. They don't put a burden on our emergency rooms, which in the end, everybody pays for. Mm-hmm. Because if you have no hope of getting a job, if you have not gotten the skills, you can't read very well, you're likely to cycle downward in your life. You're likely to get maybe involved in substance abuse, maybe just have unhealthy habits, not understand about nutrition. And so you're going to visit the emergency room instead of having that regular health care. And that's going to raise the cost of health care for everyone. So even for people who are not as concerned about, the democratic, civil engagement, civic engagement of people, they should care about the society functioning better, because each person has that educational base to know enough to take care of themselves and to contribute to those around them. And that has huge ripple effects. You think about the families. If you have people who are self-sufficient, then their family can learn from that.
Right.
They can see the example. Their kids are going to learn to be self-sufficient. They're going to have that inspiration, that role model. If you have, on the other hand, someone who's spiraling down because they're not well educated, because they don't understand how to take care of themselves, they're likely to have that impact on people around them as well. So for everybody, whether you have children in school or not, whether you are young or old, whether you're a minority or whatever racial, ethnic, religious group you are, you should want people to have access to quality education.
Ms. Roberts, I know you're so involved into the community. Where is that passion coming from, seeing this Charlotte become one of the best cities in the country?
Well, I think I've always been a positive person.
Yes, ma'am.
And I also am a firm believer in the power of one individual to make a difference. And I think that, again, if you're given the tools, anybody can make a difference with the right training, with the right understanding of how to access change, how to access leadership, how to access the system. And I think that one of the things I love in being a county commissioner is walking around the community and meeting ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things every day.
Correct.
And I think that is what is so inspiring about a free and democratic society, is that average people, when called upon, can achieve extraordinary things. And so I really find that uplifting, inspiring. It helps me, confront the schedule that I have, where I have 20 different things to do in one day, and start at 7:30 in the morning with a breakfast and end up at 10 o'clock at night having gone to some kind of community function. What keeps me going is seeing those ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and it's out of the goodness of their heart, out of the interest of their spirit. Maybe it's out of their faith. Whatever it is that they feel connected with the community, whatever way they feel connected, they're making a difference. And my positive outlook and my ability to listen well. I think, as an undergraduate, I was an English major.
Correct.
And so English and history in graduate school. And so what you're really doing is you're reading stories about people. You're learning history about people, about how they act, about why this happened this way, about how people interact. And I find that very interesting, and I find it empowering, because when you understand the history of somebody, their family, their race, their culture, the state they were born in or the country they were born in, when you understand that history, you understand why they're motivated to do what they do. And it gives you an outlook of exploration, of comprehension that makes the whole world kind of a story place. And I think that is something, that ability to listen very well, and to try to bring people to an understanding of how they relate to the community. I think that has been extremely helpful in what I've done, not just when I was an educator, I was a banker and a diplomat, but also now as a county commissioner. I think counties really see the way things interrelate. I'll give you an example. A few years back, there was the United Agenda for Children, and what it looked at was the health of children and how that impacted their academic achievement.
Correct.
And so we knew that if kids didn't have proper dental care, if they had toothaches or they had things that weren't treated medically, they missed days of school. And that, again, led to that spiral and decline. If they had a troubled background in their family, if they had one parent or parents who fought all the time or on substance abuse, that led to that spiral downward, no matter how good the teacher was in the classroom. So what we see as county commissioners is the connection of all the aspects of people's lives, their health, their spiritual background, their family background, as well as that intellectual opportunity, that academic opportunity. All those things are a factor in people's success. And I think that's what, my curiosity, my ability to listen, my interest in the history of people and the sort of interrelations of people. And that's politics is really about that. It's about sociology and about people trying to work together for a common direction or a common result. And that has, I think, been very helpful in helping me lead the county commission.
I know when you go out to these communities and you see the homeless situation that's going on in our community, how does that make you feel? And how do we go about changing the situation?
Well, we're actually working on a lot of fronts at once.
Yes, ma'am.
Because as the Board of Commissioners is also the Board of Public Health. And when I go to the Urban Ministry Center or the Uptown Shelter or the Salvation Army, and I sit down and talk to people, how did you end up without being able to afford rent? A lot of times it's one health event. Someone got diagnosed with diabetes, or somebody had a major accident and their health insurance didn't cover all the treatment. Or their mother or mother-in-law had a major accident, which involved perhaps spinal cord injury or something. Any number of things that can happen to any average person, just tripping in the street. That health incident started them on the expense curve where they couldn't sustain it and they became homeless. So again, healthcare extremely important. I think all the other things, the societal challenges, the influence of violence on from media, from people not learning how to handle differences and disputes, not having the chance to talk through things, but seeing role models that are using violence, etc. That can lead to that downward spiral, and that's what we need to continue to to help people understand, so that we're not blaming someone for being a failure in school.
Correct.
But we're giving them the tools to get on the right, on the right direction, to get back on track, and to understand the complex series of things that led to that failure, to the failure of that particular educational track or that particular student at that point in time. And we don't want our youth to end up in our jails, because we know that's not the best place to learn.
Correct.
We know that that is the beginning of a downward spiral that's going to lead to them having a stigma. It's going to lead to them having a record. It's going to lead to them coming in contact with other people who are not successes. And do you know that many of the folks, more than half the folks in jail, can't read?
Correct.
So they don't have the basic skills to access that opportunity. And that, again, is a downward spiral that impacts everybody.
Another issue we have in our community is the issue of the economy and the jobs. How are we looking now compared to like last year, 2 years ago?
Well, a couple of years ago, we were up to 12% unemployment. And we have slowly been trending downward. We're now at about a little bit over 10%. And we watch these things closely. We work very well with the City of Charlotte, with the State of North Carolina, with the Chamber of Commerce here, to try to identify industries we know are growing, where there's a future, whether it's healthcare, whether it's energy. And a lot of that's renewable energy, the new energy economy with the smart grid and wind and solar power, all those things that are the next generation of the power industry. Motorsports, aerospace, still finance, still a big industry in this area. So we help, working with our team, we help identify areas that are growing. We help Central Piedmont Community College and UNC Charlotte and Davidson and Johnson C. Smith tailor their programs to prepare students for those industries where the jobs are growing. We also support Central Piedmont Community College and some of the other partners that are helping people who've already been in the workforce, whose job may have disappeared. If you're a textile worker, you've got to learn a new job skill, because there just aren't textiles in North Carolina anymore like they used to be. And that's a combination of automation and global competition. So we're helping those entities retrain workers in the new healthcare technologies and some of the things, the information technologies, so they can, even in the middle of their lives, find a new direction and continue to be self-supporting. So that is something we are constantly doing. We put job growth, economic development at the top of our priority list.
Okay.
It wasn't a few years ago. A few years ago, we had it lower down. But when the unemployment got so high, we have really put emphasis on it. We also have economic grants that we give to companies coming in. If they create a certain number of jobs and they bring in a certain amount of investment, we actually give them a dollar grant based on their performance and what if they are able to fulfill the promise, because we know that they bring extra revenue to our government.
What advice would you give to the viewing audience who may be unemployed? It seems real bad. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, one of the first things I tell my children this too. It's not about how many times you fall or get knocked down in life. It's about how many times you pick yourself back up. It's about the times you get back up and say, I'm still going. I'm still in the game. Put me in, coach.
And that's what matters.
That's what matters. Everybody's going to fall. Everybody's going to have a catastrophic event that's going to hit, whether it's job loss, whether it's the death of a loved one, whether it's other things that challenge all of us. It's getting back up. And I also tell people, reach out and ask for help. If you find yourself where you need to pull yourself up, don't just do it yourself. We've got all these people in the community who are ready to help, who have the experience, who have programs that'll help, who care about you just because you're you, no matter who you are. It's amazing. So I also point them toward, once we talk about having to get back up and get back on your feet, I point them toward the resources we have. The community college, the Goodwill, the nonprofits that are helping with job creation, Chamber of Commerce on their website has those industries that are growing, has names of companies that are moving here. They have announcements. The Red Cross just opened up a new call center, 450 new jobs. All they do is schedule people to donate blood all up and down the East Coast. Their call center is here in Charlotte.
That's great.
So I think they're still hiring.
Correct.
That's the kind of thing that I hope to connect people with. I point them to the libraries. We have great librarians who can connect you to job websites that are talking about who's needed, who's hiring, that sort of thing. So if people have been out of work for 2 years, I tell them, keep getting up every day, keep looking. It's a matter of being in the right place at the right time sometimes.
Correct.
And be open to change. Be open to learning a new skill or using your skill in a different way, in a different industry you may not have even thought about. There are, for example, if you're willing to travel, there are jobs overseas with U.S. embassies teaching English. There are jobs for nurses and doctors. There are jobs for technicians, for IT people, even in U.S. embassies overseas. There are also major companies here that have a whole range of needs, not just the technical knowledge of a product, but sales and marketing, event planners. Big corporations have event planners.
That's true.
Because they do a lot of events. So, there are lots of opportunities. And I also try to encourage people to think about, what do you enjoy? What do you enjoy about life? If you follow your passion, no matter what you do, you're going to be successful because you're doing something you believe in. And be creative. There are a lot of cottage industries. There are a lot of people who start a company in their own home because it's something they enjoy doing. Maybe they enjoy making T-shirts. Well, companies have been started that way.
Correct.
Or maybe you enjoy cooking. We have lots of catering opportunities. I actually have a friend who's a musician. And she realized that there aren't good tools for cleaning musical instruments because you have to pull the piece of cloth through and there's a certain way to do it. And she has now selling instrument cleaners that she sews herself. She's selling them all over the country.
We got the Democratic National Convention coming up in 2012. What impact will that have on the city of Charlotte?
Well, the Democrat National Convention is going to have an impact on this whole region and on the state of North Carolina for a number of reasons. If you just look at the politics, it's going to put North Carolina in play in the presidential election. All of a sudden, that draws a lot more attention to this state. If you look at the actual convention itself, the hotels that will be finished, spruced up, we've already seen the Sierra Hotel, the Park Hotel is going to get finished. A lot of things are going to happen in preparation for all those 50 to 100,000 people who are going to be here during that 1 week. Not to mention, that's just the short-term benefit. All those people who come here or who watch on television and see Charlotte, North Carolina, Charlotte, Mecklenburg, featured on the world stage, they're going to have much better understanding of what we have to offer. So there are people, for example, I went to China in December. There's a growing middle class in China, but there are people in China who've never heard of Charlotte.
Correct.
But they have the disposable income to come visit. And we have a growing Chinese American community here. We have an Indian American community here. We have a number of foreign cultures who have connections. We could grow that tourism very easily once people see us on television, once they understand what Charlotte Mecklenburg is all about. So that whole introduction to the world stage leads to increased tourism. It could also be one of those things that leads to more companies coming here. Because they see Charlotte, they hear about the energy sector, they hear about motorsports, and they say, well, I could go and be part of that economy. So there are all kinds of benefits, whether you're politically minded or not. Business, education, the future of the economy. It's all going to be part of what happens with the convention and the aftermath.
You're not only a mother, but you're a wife. What inspiration do you get from your family?
Well, my family has to put up with a lot.
Yeah.
When they have a mother and a wife who is going to a breakfast at 7:30 in the morning and not coming home till 10 o'clock at night because I've been at a community event or given out an award or made a speech, they, first of all, they learn to be very independent.
Correct.
But I still work very hard to stay involved in my children's education and stay involved in the choices they're making and spending time with them on weekends. And my husband as well. And they've been very supportive. My kids have helped with my campaign. But they also have started paying attention to some of the local issues. My children read the paper, and when they see me quoted, they'll ask about the issue. What's really going on here, Mom? Because they know they can't just trust one story about something. They know that every story has a bias. And the media in particular is biased toward conflict. So if there's anything that comes up in a meeting that seems to have some kind of controversy or conflict, that's going to get a lot of play in the press. There may be another policy decision that was made that was very important but did not get covered. So my children always ask to find out what's the story behind the story, and then they want to weigh in from their own opinion. They want, especially when it comes to our schools and to school policy, and they have opinions. So they're seeing and learning what it's like to be involved in decision making, and they also understand if they get bullied or teased because they're wearing some goofy clothing or someone doesn't like something they said, they get bullied, they see how I react when I get criticized in the newspaper, when I get angry emails, when I get people calling and saying, you know, you're going to be punished for doing these awful things. They see how I react and how I don't get overwhelmed by other people's opinions because I have a belief system and I've listened to people and I believe in what I'm doing. And they see that strength, and I think they've learned from it. But I also learn from them, and I enjoy in their schoolwork. I enjoy seeing what our schools have to deal with, seeing how the teachers are in the classroom, understanding all those things that work together, understanding that budget that I'm supporting and seeing it firsthand, and also seeing their joy at learning new things and their teachers working like crazy to give them that opportunity and give them that access. And we have some great teachers in our system. Yes. And my husband, I didn't talk about him, he is also very supportive. He helps me laugh because he gives me that bigger perspective because he's not in there in the nitty-gritty, and he helps me laugh about some of these things, takes a step back and says, you know, look how silly this thing is that you're all worked up about. And I love his sense of humor.
Ms. Roberts, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Anytime you have time to come back, I really come back. Thank you. Audience, thank you for watching the show. You be encouraged. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.